This video is sponsored by Squarespace. In the 1990s, the two titans of DC Comics, Batman and Superman, were brought to life in acclaimed animated shows, featuring fan-pleasing crossovers between the two. This burgeoning animated universe was expanded even further in 1999's Batman Beyond. Despite initial fan skepticism, the show became a cult hit, seen as more than a worthy addition to the DCAU. The creative team at Warner Bros. Animation was 3 for 3, having already cemented their takes on these DC icons as definitive in the minds of many fans. Entering the new millennium, the time had finally come for their most ambitious series yet. As far back as Batman the Animated Series, fans were already clamoring for an adaptation of Justice League. Bruce Timm, co-creator and producer of all three DCAU shows, was sympathetic to these fans, but for most of the decade, such a series was beyond the scope of television animation. Even so, the idea was always in the back of Timm's mind. During the development of Superman the Animated Series and the new Batman adventures, he and his fellow writer-producers took many opportunities to cross over the title characters and many more DC heroes. Superman teamed up with The Flash, Dr. Fate, Green Lantern, and Aquaman. Meanwhile, Batman introduced Zatanna, Etrigan the Demon, the Creeper, and featured a guest appearance from Supergirl. As more and more DC characters appeared in the shows, and animation technology advanced, Timm's dream Justice League show was slowly inching closer to reality. The Batman Beyond two-part episode The Call was designed to test the waters, not only to see how fans would react, but also to explore the practicalities of producing such a show. The two-parter became one of the highest-rated episodes of the series, and it definitively proved that a Justice League show was achievable on a television budget. Kids WB had been the DCAU's home since Superman the Animated Series, but by Batman Beyond, a point of contention had arisen between the network and the studio. Kids WB held the belief that to appeal to young audiences, their shows should predominantly feature young characters. This was one of the primary reasons Superman the Animated Series was cancelled at the end of its third season, and was the impetus behind Batman Beyond's creation. Therefore, the initial pitch for the Justice League show featured a very different lineup. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter were a given as they were mainstays of the Justice League in the comics. However, rather than other longtime members like Hal Jordan's Green Lantern or Aquaman, the producers opted for John Stewart Green Lantern and Hawkgirl to add more diversity to the team. To satisfy the network, they dropped The Flash in favour of Impulse and added Robin, as well as a female character inspired by Cyborg. But by the time the team cobbled together a proof of concept for this version of the show, they had already received another offer from Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network already had a relationship with Warner Bros. Animation, having aired reruns of the studio's Looney Tunes shorts when the network first began in the early 90s. Much of the network's programming was geared towards young children, but the channel also found success with Toonami, a block of programming featuring action shows and imported Japanese anime, which was geared more towards teens and young adults. Since Batman the Animated Series, a good chunk of the DCAU's audience skewed far older than typical children's programming. Therefore, a Justice League show was a natural fit for Cartoon Network's existing audience of young adult viewers. Thus, the show left Kids WB, the lineup lost its younger members, and The Flash was reinstated. Tim Daly, who voiced Superman in the animated series, was initially set to reprise his role for Justice League. Unfortunately, Daly had to back out of the series due to his commitments to The Fugitive. In his place, TV and film actor George Newbern took over the role of Clark Kent/Superman. Fortunately for the show, Kevin Conroy was available to once again lend his iconic voice to the Dark Knight. Rounding out the DC Trinity was voice actress Susan Eisenberg as Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. Michael Rosenbaum lent his voice to several recurring characters throughout Batman Beyond, including the villain Carter Wilson and Joker's henchman Ghoul. He was cast as The Flash, taking over from Charlie Schlater, who voiced the character in the Superman animated series episode Speed Demons. Rosenbaum would famously go on to play a young Lex Luthor in the hit series Smallville, which began airing the same year as Justice League. Another DCAU alumni was Phil Lamar, who had previously lent his voice to the Zeta Project and Static Shock. Lamar had already made a name for himself as a prolific voice actor, and would go on to voice the lead in Samurai Jack and play Hermes in Futurama, among a dizzying array of other roles before and after Justice League. Experienced TV and theatre actress Maria Canals Barrera was cast as Shaira Hall, aka Hawkgirl. Like many DCAU cast members before her, she had little voice acting experience, but grew to love both the process and the character. Lastly, Carl Lumbly was cast as John Jones, aka Martian Manhunter. Lumbly was an experienced stage and screen actor who had previously played bit parts in Superman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond. He would later appear in many sci-fi and superhero shows like Battlestar Galactica, Supergirl, and Altered Carbon. Most recently, he appeared in Captain America: Brave New World as Isaiah Bradley. Justice League was animated using many of the same techniques pioneered in Batman Beyond. Frames were hand-drawn and then scanned into the computer where they were coloured and composited together. Justice League also employed computer graphics for the show's opening, which featured 3D animated versions of the heroes. Justice League's art direction leaned away from the deco and anime styles of previous shows. Bruce Timm reasoned that with 7 extraordinary main characters, the world should feel more grounded. Further design changes were also made to Batman and Superman. Batman's costume combined the black and grey colour scheme of the new Batman adventures with the longer ears of Batman Beyond. Age lines were added to Superman's face to make him appear more mature. Justice League's scale was far larger than anything the creative team had handled before. Previous shows mostly focused on a single hero, but with 7 powerful main characters, the whole scope of the series and its demands on the animators increased literally 7-fold. This increased scope necessitated a format change. Rather than the standard 20-minute episode, Justice League episodes would be a full 45 minutes split into 2 parts. The main theme was composed by Lolita Ritmanis, who contributed to Superman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond. The Justice League had previously appeared in animated form in the Hanna-Barbera series Super Friends, a kid-friendly cartoon with simplistic, forgettable plots and stiff animation. The only other time the League had graced the small screen was in an infamously terrible live-action pilot, which had more in common with the sitcom Friends than its source material. And so on the 17th of November 2001, superhero fans were finally given a show that they hoped would do justice to the League. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the ultimate tool for creating your own beautiful website. I recently redesigned my website galaxyclasspictures.com using Squarespace's cutting-edge design tools like Blueprint AI, which helped me generate a brand new personalized template, which I then customized using Squarespace's easy-to-use Fluid engine. Squarespace also helps with your site's discoverability with their built-in SEO and domain name features. You can optimize your website so it shows up more often in searches and secure your ideal domain name. No extra fees and no add-ons required. Jump over to Squarespace using the link below to start building your website and use the coupon code RowanJColeman to get 10% off your first purchase. Looking back on Secret Origins, it feels like the blueprint for future live-action superhero team-ups like Avengers Assemble and Zack Snyder's Justice League. When an extraterrestrial threat comes to planet Earth, its 7 greatest heroes unite to repel the invaders and save the world. Part 1 is an efficiently written slice of intrigue. The calm before the inevitable storm. Astronauts on Mars awaken an ancient evil, Batman contends against a shape-shifting scouting party, and Superman is overwhelmed by cryptic visions from origins unknown. It's all effective build-up for when the invaders finally make planetfall and the action begins in earnest. The design of the invaders is very striking and recalls many classic science fiction stories. Their shapeshifting abilities echo works like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, while their towering war machines are clearly inspired by H.G. Wells' War of the World. They're convincing as a big enough threat that forced the Justice League to unite. However, after a tight-knit plot that weaves together Batman, Superman, and Martian Manhunter, Part 2 is a little clunkier. Wonder Woman's arrival is preempted with its own subplot, but Jon Stewart and Hawkgirl simply arrive on the scene, apparently already familiar with the Man of Steel. It's slightly confusing. The team bounce off each other well in many scenes. Green Lantern and Flash in particular are a good double act, Jon Stewart's military discipline clashing harshly with Flash's cocky attitude and lack of forethought. Hawkgirl is distinguished as a ferocious warrior, J'onn J'onzz the wise outsider, and Batman the expert infiltrator and strategist. However, Wonder Woman and Superman are somewhat lacking. Wonder Woman comes across as too arch compared to the others. It's unclear what role she serves in the team. Superman himself seems far less powerful than before and more bland in his personality, though more on this later. Ultimately, Secret Origins satisfies as a piece of spectacle, if not story. The closest thing to an emotional through-line is J'onn's confrontation with the alien leader. With the League defeated, the scene turns from dire to disturbing as the creature burrows its tentacles into the Martian's skin, only to set up Batman's last-minute rescue. The revelation that the invaders are weak to sunlight kicks off a cathartic final action set-piece, as the League literally restores light to the world. While not as successful as the debuts of preceding shows, Secret Origins is a promising start to the Justice League. Unfortunately, Season 1 struggles to elevate itself above the premiere. Make no mistake, the series is well written and well presented for the most part, but it falls short of true greatness. The animation is generally strong, the digital techniques having overcome their teething problems in Batman Beyond. However, some of the effects, fire and smoke in particular, aren't consistent with the art style. They often look hyper-detailed or murky. The choice to dial back the stylization of the world is also a misstep. Without the ocean liner deco aesthetic, Metropolis looks far too generic. There's a lack of bold colours in the backgrounds which distinguished the older shows. Season 1 also struggles to balance all of its characters at times. The writers later admitted they struggled with Superman in particular. Due to his extreme power level, there was a feeling that the League was somewhat useless next to him. So in order to ratchet up the stakes, Superman is often knocked down, knocked out, or subdued in some way to make room for the other characters. While the motivation behind this is understandable, the effect makes Superman seem weak and ineffectual. This character, who previously went toe-to-toe with Darkseid, is knocked unconscious by a regular sea mine. The new age lines in his design don't help matters. Rather than the intended effect of making him look more mature, Superman looks strangely gaunt and tired for much of Season 1. His characterization is also blander. In his own series, the writers injected the Man of Steel with a righteous anger and wry wit, which complemented his strong sense of morality and quiet intelligence. By downplaying these traits, Justice League's Superman is good-natured but boring. The show takes a leaf out of Michael Pillar's book by centering the story of each episode on one particular League member. The cosmic courtroom drama seen in the episode In Blackest Night feels especially Star Trek-esque. The series is large in scale but lacking intensity and darkness. The show often falls back on typical superhero storylines without that extra dimension that made Batman, Superman, and Batman Beyond so successful. Occasionally, that old intensity crops up in episodes like Enemy Below. The Atlantean court intrigue is pretty by the numbers, but Aquaman amputating his hand to save his son is suitably impactful. But strong dramatic beats like this are few in Season 1. Though that's not to say they are absent entirely, for one of the strongest entries in Season 1 is the multifaceted Legends. During a battle in Metropolis, Green Lantern, Flash, Hawkgirl, and J'onn are transported to a parallel universe where they encounter the Justice Guild, comic book characters from Jon Stewart's childhood. As the heroes contend with local villains while trying to find a way home, they soon discover not all is as it seems. Legends is a loving tribute to the gold and silver ages of comics, filled with subtle in-jokes and clever references to DC Comics history. such as Green Guardsman and the Streak being modelled after the obscure original versions of Green Lantern and the Flash, and the entire premise being inspired by actual DC Universe world building, which came as a result of some publishing complications. The writers must have had themselves in stitches as they littered the episode with farcical characters and cheesy puns.
Prepare to be foiled, Catman.
But the script also has fun highlighting the more dated aspects of the age, specifically attitudes towards gender roles.
So, you fight crime and bake cookies. How do you do it?
And race.
You're a credit to your people, son.
Thanks.
Jokes which would fly over the head of any 10-year-old watching, but are more appreciated as an adult. The premise would be enough to sustain a full comedy episode in the same spirit as Superman's Mix is Pixelated, but there are more layers to the episode beneath the surface level amusement. As Lantern and Hawkgirl scratch the surface of this idyllic world, the kid-friendly tone and quaint retro aesthetic turn unsettling and strange. A deep foreboding emerges as the League members probe deeper. When the truth is revealed, the story shifts fully into Twilight Zone-esque horror. This parallel Earth was destroyed in nuclear war decades ago, and the Guild's kid psychic, Ray, mutated by radioactive fallout, has trapped the town in a psychic dream of the past, and recreated its fallen heroes after they died in battle. Like the best of the DCAU, this twist pushes the boundaries of so-called children's television. Grappling with the subject matter of a nuclear holocaust is already weighty, but it's Rudy's true form which is most shocking. He is grotesque and cruel, but also a deeply tragic figure, an innocent child forcibly transformed into a seething monster. Yet the episode switches gears again by deftly illuminating the power of superhero stories. Earlier in the episode, Jon Stewart talks about how the Justice Guild comics, despite their silliness, inspired him as a child and contributed to his choice to become a Green Lantern. In the end, the Guild makes the ultimate sacrifice by fighting Rudy to free the League and the townsfolk, knowing it will mean their deaths. In a poignant moment at the end of the battle, Stewart watches the Guild fade away for good, having saved the world one last time. Although the episode relishes in nostalgia, the story favors letting go of the past, even when it's painful. We should cherish our memories and not be consumed by them. What matters most is the here and now. The following episode shows just how far superhero stories have come since the Golden Age, with a villain team-up extravaganza in Injustice for All. Lex Luthor's criminal enterprise is finally exposed, and his fortunes turn from bad to worse when he's diagnosed with terminal kryptonite poisoning. He soon hatches an escape plan and forms an uneasy alliance with a gang of supervillains in order to cure his disease and take down the Justice League. In Season 1, the show's writers chose not to rely on the established continuity with Batman and Superman, so that newer characters would have more breathing room. But however understandable, this proved to be another misstep. With a wealth of fantastic voice talent, characters, and world building at their disposal, the smart move would have been to utilize it at every opportunity. I feel this is where Lex Luthor's animated incarnation becomes the best version of the character. It incorporates all the best elements from the character's decades of history into one definitive form. The episode would have been even stronger had it featured more established villains, but Clancy Brown's Lex Luthor and Mark Hamill's Joker are more than enough. The episode shines in part 2 when the Injustice Gang capture Batman and a complex battle of wits unfolds. While Luthor fights to save his own life, the Dark Knight expertly manipulates the gang members into turning on each other. Only the Joker can see the threat he poses, but by the time he gets his chance to silence the Bat, it's already too late. Injustice for All serves as the blueprint for great future episodes of the show. Rather than sacrificing established elements in favor of new ones, the episode demonstrates how they can exist together and be all the stronger for it. An underrated episode from Season 1 is Metamorphosis. When evil corporatist Simon Stagg discovers his daughter Sapphire is engaged to ex-Marine Rex Mason, he concocts a plot to douse Mason with a mutagen and keep Sapphire under his control. The episode is very much in the tradition of Batman and Superman's animated series. It's a story of love and betrayal, taking obvious inspiration from classic Hollywood dramas and 50s sci-fi B-movies alike. The League take more of a back seat in the episode, but the web of characters surrounding Mason are plenty engaging on their own. Simon Stagg and his henchman Java are instantly memorable for their big personalities and unique designs. In contrast to Lex Luthor or Derek Powers, Stagg is quite a pathetic figure, controlled by petty jealousy and naked greed. Java, meanwhile, is a slow and dim-witted creature, not outright evil, but simply loyal to the wrong man. When Mason is transformed into Metamorpho, he is overcome with terror, believing he has turned into a monster. He briefly loses himself and succumbs to the baser instincts which drive his enemy, unjustly accusing his best friend of stealing his fiancée and attacking the Justice League out of blind anger. The episode pushes into even darker territory when Mason inadvertently lobotomizes Stagg, and what's left of his consciousness reconstitutes inside a giant lumbering green monster, an apt but on-the-nose metaphor for Stagg's jealousy. In the end, Mason overcomes his anger and becomes the hero who saves the day and the woman he loves. Awkwardly placed in the season perhaps, but a great standalone episode nonetheless. But the Justice League return to the forefront in the 3-part season finale, The Savage Time. On their way back from deep space, the League are suddenly transported into an alternate timeline where the world suffers under the iron grip of a Nazi-like regime. To restore the present, the League travel back in time to World War II to confront the villain Vandal Savage. The episode is another extended tribute to comic book history. Not only does the episode feature era-appropriate characters like the Blackhawks, but it also alludes to the real history of comic books as Allied propaganda. Despite their superpowers, the advanced weaponry created by Vandal Savage proves too much of a challenge, and an early battle separates the League members into different plot threads, each inspired by the fiction and/or real events of the day. In a reverse D-Day-like sequence, Superman, Hawkgirl and the Flash take on a support rather than offensive role, holding off the German advance while rescuing as many troops as possible. Meanwhile, John Stewart, without his power ring, is stranded behind enemy lines and forced to fight a guerrilla campaign alongside Easy Company. At the same time, Wonder Woman meets Steve Trevor, and together they embark on a quest to smuggle vital intelligence through the occupied countryside. Finally, Martian Manhunter, captured by the SS, fights to bring down Savage's operation from within. The 3-parter is enormous in scope, a technological marvel for television animation at the time. It depicts massive battle sequences containing hundreds of soldiers and vehicles. But between these huge set pieces is a never-ending stream of chases, skirmishes, and stealth missions. Despite Season 1's stumbles, The Savage Time shows what Justice League is capable of when firing on all cylinders. A spectacular adventure packed with exciting action and compelling larger-than-life characters, but most of all, it embodies the true spirit of heroism, a spirit which exists in the powerful and the ordinary alike. Despite many strong episodes, Justice League's creative team were largely dissatisfied with the first year and sought to redress their errors. Rather than settling for good enough, the team endeavoured to make Season 2 the best it could be on both an aesthetic and dramatic front. Borrowing a maxim from Mel Brooks, the team knew they needed to ring that bell, meaning to commit fully to their dramatic beats, even if that meant wading into darker territory. The stories of Season 2 were to be more intense, with higher stakes and far-reaching consequences. But at the top of the team's priority list was fixing Superman. All of Season 2's improvements are on full display in the debut episode, Twilight. When Brainiac attacks Apocalypse, Darkseid goes to the Justice League for help. Superman begrudgingly agrees, but he takes no chances with Darkseid, and inevitably the Tyrant of Apocalypse reveals his true plan. Though the creative team didn't realize it at first, fan forums quickly informed them they had made Superman a wimp in Season 1. He was so frequently beaten, knocked down and hurt, and he had none of the gravitas of his original animated series incarnation. Twilight was intended by way of an apology to the character's fans. He returns to his original design, and the script is not afraid of making the Man of Steel angry. Darkseid and Brainiac are the foes he never definitively defeated, and so pairing them up together raises the immediate and emotional stakes to truly cosmic levels. Like The Savage Time, Twilight is the series at its best, stuffed with spectacle and drama. The pivotal moment comes in the episode's climax. With Brainiac's base about to explode, Superman traps Darkseid for their ultimate showdown.
What makes you think today's outcome will be any different?
Because this time, I won't stop until you're just a greasy smear on my fist. Let's go.
Like Legacy before it, Twilight is a mythic clash of titans. The fight is brutal, with Superman firing his heat vision through Darkseid's foot. The Man of Steel is so enraged and so determined to destroy his enemy that he becomes truly frightening.
Kent, don't be a fool.
Get out of here! Now!
True to the writer's intentions, by the end of Twilight, the bell has certainly been rung.
Nothing could have survived that. Not even Darkseid.
You know something, Bruce? You're not always right.
From there, Justice League Season 2 hits the show's hot streak, with great episodes one after another. Tabula Rasa sees the League go up against Amazo, a nanotech android capable of mimicking the League's powers. An action set-piece extravaganza which constantly escalates from start to finish. By the end of the episode, the android has become so powerful that it transcends the planet entirely and takes off for the stars. Eclipsed is an underrated body snatcher style narrative which sees the Flash facing off against the entire League when they are taken over by the vengeful spirit of a long-dead reptilian race. A suspenseful standalone thrill ride which puts the fastest man alive through his paces. Meanwhile, The Terror Beyond is a delight for fans of Lovecraftian horror, as the League fend off a godlike extra-dimensional being. Secret Society is the spiritual sequel to Injustice for All, as Gorilla Grodd forms a new villain team to destroy the Justice League from within and without. The episode leans into the soap opera elements of the show, as the League members argue like resentful members of a family. This internal conflict makes the finale extra satisfying when the League rallies to take on Grodd's gang in a spectacular throwdown before the eyes of the world. But the next episode I want to highlight is far more intimate in Only a Dream. John Dee, a lowly inmate at Stryker's Island, sees his life go from bad to worse when his parole is yet again denied and his wife leaves him for another man. Driven to despair, he uses the diversion of a prison riot to give himself superpowers using an experimental ESP machine. Though the attempt puts him in a coma, he gains the ability to invade people's dreams, and soon sets about fulfilling his fantasy of destroying the Justice League. Continuing Season 2's winning streak, Only a Dream is a character-rich narrative full of nightmarish imagery and edge-of-the-seat suspense. It also boasts some of the show's best animation. The prison riot sequence in Part 1 features intricate choreography, fluid emotion, and explosive set pieces. It alone is thrilling, but Part 2 is where the episode shows its winning hand. The dream sequences inside each League member's mind are appropriately nightmarish, and hint at deep-seated fears within the characters. The content of these scenes is shockingly graphic for a kids' show. Dee transforms into the villain Dr. Destiny, with his face slopping off to reveal a grinning skull underneath. Superman's nightmare, in which he loses control of his powers, is especially horrific as he inadvertently murders his closest friends. Meanwhile, in the waking world, a sleep-deprived Batman races to find Dee's physical body to cease his mental attacks. The writers once again display their mastery of tone, contrasting the twisted imagery of the dreams and the ticking clock of the plot with some well-placed jokes, like Batman making a last-minute coffee run.
Give me a triple. Now.
But it's J'onn J'onzz who emerges as the hero of the episode. J'onn is easily one of the show's most complex and interesting characters. As the last of his kind, he's a deeply lonely figure who sees himself as an outsider to the people he has chosen to protect. J'onn is so compelling as a character due to his overtly alien nature. His shape-shifting, intangibility, and telepathic powers often come across as creepy, particularly his signature move of sticking his hand through people's bodies. His sphinx-like expression and monotone voice always keeps the viewer at a distance, But beneath his unknowable exterior is a sensitive individual who possesses great wisdom. Carl Lumbly's performance is pitch perfect. His calm baritone can come across as cold and detached, but also warm and nurturing. The distance between himself and others isn't a result of his alien nature, but his hesitancy to open up to people, having lost everyone he once cared about.
My name is Jean. I'm a Martian.
Oh, we're no strangers to aliens in this house.
Jean's good heart shines through in Only a Dream as he lifts his friends out of their nightmares one by one. In a typically expert use of dramatic irony, Dee is defeated when he accidentally stabs himself with a sedative, trapping himself inside a dream which he cannot escape. Not only does Only a Dream present all the usual strengths of superhero stories, but it also shows us there is more to these iconic characters beneath the surface. Only a Dream's only major drawback is the glaring omission of Wonder Woman, but luckily she gets her chance to shine in the underrated episode Maid of Honor. While attending a party in Paris, Diana makes friends with Kasnian princess Audrey, but is shocked to discover her fiancé is none other than the supervillain Vandal Savage. Since Secret Origins, it's obvious the writers struggled with Wonder Woman's character, but Maid of Honor finally gets her right. The plot reveals more dimensions to the Amazon, overcoming her fish-out-of-water status and settling into a dynamic personal life. She becomes a big sister of sorts to Audrey, always looking out for the rebellious princess while also allowing herself to relax and have fun. The episode sees the beginnings of a subtle romance between Diana and Bruce Wayne, who appears as his secret identity for the first time in the series. Their flirtatious dance is suddenly interrupted by a kidnapping attempt on Audrey, which Diana fends off handily. This opening scene sets up the episode as a James Bondian adventure, replete with a satellite superweapon and a gimmicky henchman in the form of Colonel Vox. Taking Wonder Woman out of the world of fantasy and plunging her into a globe-trotting action-adventure brings the character down to earth, so to speak. She ceases to be the one-note mythological figure of Season 1 and becomes a more well-rounded character. Still just as courageous and compassionate as before, but with greater depth. Vandal Savage also develops further, revealing his backstory as an immortal criminal mastermind, in a similar vein as Ra's al Ghul. He becomes the ideal foil for Wonder Woman. While she seeks to understand and uplift humanity, Vandal Savage only seeks to dominate and control it. The episode is a fun, sprawling adventure full of romance, grandeur, and thrills, but most of all, it finally puts Wonder Woman on equal footing with the rest of the League.
You know, we never did get to finish our dance.
I don't know what you're talking about.
If you say so, but you're still taking me dancing.
While Maid of Honor is a great one-off adventure, a far more consequential episode comes in A Better World. In a parallel universe, Superman kills President Lex Luthor, and the Justice League becomes the Justice Lords, presiding over a worldwide police state. When the Lords become aware of the Prime Universe, they endeavor to trap the Justice League and bring order to their world by force. The structure of the episode draws the viewer in by framing the narrative from the Justice Lord's perspective. From the prologue in the White House, we are filled with questions until the plot reconnects with the Justice League we know. In a departure from typical DCAU stories, A Better World tackles the weighty subject of freedom versus security. How much should people be willing to sacrifice to be safe? At first, the Justice Lords seem justified in their actions. As strict as their order is, the world is undeniably more peaceful. Prime Batman even seems to be won over by the argument in a confrontation with his alternate self. However, the hidden cruelty of this world soon becomes apparent during a trip to Arkham Asylum, where familiar supervillains have been forcibly lobotomized by Lord Superman. Prime Batman's conversion is also revealed as a ruse when he highlights the brutality of this police state, where ordinary citizens are carted away for even the most minor infraction. That being said, the narrative still remains very much fixed on character. We learn that the Justice Lords went rogue after the Flash was killed by Luthor, revealing him as the conscience of the group. The Flash may be cocky and immature, but he also possesses an approachable, wholesome quality. Unlike the other heroes whose lore is carefully updated here and there, Flash retains much of his Silver Age charm. While others are clashing with gods among the stars, Flash still finds time to deliver Christmas presents to needy children. The showdown with the Justice Lords shows just how far they've strayed when Lord Superman is fully prepared to kill Flash to win the battle. As great as the episode is, the resolution is admittedly contrived. Lex Luthor appears with a borderline magical gun capable of nullifying the Lord's powers with a single shot. Afterwards, he keeps his word to accept a pardon for his crimes rather than turn the weapon on the League, which seems very out of character. Despite this misstep, A Better World would prove to be one of the most pivotal episodes of the entire DC animated universe, but more on that in a future video. The following episode is the Superman-centric Hereafter. During a battle in Metropolis, the Man of Steel is seemingly killed while saving his teammates from a weapon created by Toyman. A decade prior to the episode, the death of Superman was one of the best-selling comics of the year and kicked off a media sensation when it was announced. In retrospect, the story is rather superficial and sensationalist. Hereafter wisely chooses to adapt the iconography from the story but little else. Part 1 is a moving tribute to the Man of Steel as the League and the world mourn their loss. One particularly touching scene shows Batman speaking at Superman's grave.
Despite our differences, I have nothing but respect for you. You showed me that justice doesn't always have to come from the darkness.
Part 2, however, is where the episode excels. Inevitably, Superman is revealed as very much alive, but transported thousands of years into the future. Depowered thanks to Earth's now red sun, Superman embarks on a quest across the post-apocalyptic landscape to find what's left of the world he knew. The story's thesis is revealed when Superman encounters the only other man left alive, Vandal Savage. Hereafter is essentially a restatement of Superman's importance as a character. It isn't his powers that make him special, but his moral fortitude. Vandal Savage achieved everything he set out to do, but is left alone at the end of the world, with nothing to show for all his conquests. Superman's efforts, however, succeed in building something. In the episode's final scene, Savage watches in astonishment as the ruined world he created fades away like a bad dream.
Thank you, my friend.
From the mythic fables of A Better World and Hereafter, the penultimate two-parter of the series is a high-stakes adrenaline-fueled thrill ride in Wild Cards. The Joker takes over the airwaves to host a demented game show in which the Justice League must race to stop dozens of bombs planted throughout Las Vegas. Wild Cards takes place almost entirely in real time, with a visible ticking clock on screen for the duration. This countdown ratchets up the tension as the episode goes on, which is structured like one continuous action sequence, as the League clashes with the Royal Flush Gang. Mark Hamill is in fine form as the Joker, the episode marking his last performance as the character in DCAU. He keeps the League and the viewer on their toes with last-minute double crosses, such as detonating a bomb early to hurt Green Lantern and Hawkgirl. The denouement of his final performance comes when he switches gears to reveal the twist. The entire broadcast was simply a ruse to maximize viewership and ensnare people in Ace's reality-warping gaze.
In just over 5 minutes, you'll all be hopelessly, incurably insane. Even as I speak, millions of you slack-jawed couch potatoes are losing your grip on reality. But you can't look away, even though you know something's terribly wrong.
Here, Hamill shifts his voice into the bass tones and husky quality of his Batman Beyond performance. Coupled with the creepy music and surreal visuals, the final act creates a disturbing atmosphere. Succumbing to Ace's abilities, Batman is helpless as Joker beats him to a pulp. The Dark Knight only survives by the skin of his teeth when he reveals Joker's final double cross against Ace. But rather than a cathartic triumph, the scene ends on an eerie note. Just what did Joker see in Ace's eyes, and what will become of her now that she's loose in the world?
Where are you gonna go?
Nowhere.
Emotional catharsis does come in the episode's final scene. As Hawkgirl tends to a wounded Jon Stewart, the two finally admit their feelings for each other. For the first time in the series, Shiera removes her warrior's helmet, and the two share a tender kiss to close out the episode. A well-earned tender moment, but their romance would have dire consequences in the series finale. After the warm one-off episode Comfort and Joy, Justice League's second season closes with the epic three-parter Starcrossed. Hawkgirl's people, the Thanagarians, arrive on Earth on a peaceful errand to protect the planet from their bitter enemy, the Gordanians. Shayera is revealed as a scouting agent for her people, on a mission to assess Earth's defenses. As the Thanagarians slowly seize more power over Earth, the Justice League soon suspect their motives are not as noble as they claim. Starcrossed is far more than the standard alien invasion plot. The story's emotional core centers on Jon Stewart and Shayera Hall. Not only has she been deceiving the League, but she is also promised to the Thanagarian leader, Talek. It's an emotional gut-punch combo which becomes even more devastating when the Thanagarians' true mission is revealed. To outflank their Gordanian enemies, the Thanagarians need a hyperspace bypass, but this bypass can only exist if Earth is destroyed. Since the early episodes, the producers quickly picked up on the excellent chemistry between Phil Lamar and Maria Canals-Barrera. While Hawkgirl's eventual betrayal was planned from the start, the romance between her and Green Lantern was woven into the narrative over time. It's the classic case of opposites attracting. Jon Stewart is the stalwart military man, whereas Shayera is the fiery warrior. While Stewart condones discipline and strategy, Hawkgirl's go-to move is mace to the face. Their clashing personalities quickly have them bickering like a married couple in Season 1. But as they work together, that passion develops into mutual respect, as they come to understand each other on a deeper level. Beneath Stewart's gruff military exterior is a loyal companion willing to give his life for the people he cares about. Shayera may relish a good fight, but her unguarded emotions also make her a strongly empathetic person, even to her enemies. Together they become the best versions of themselves, which is what makes the events of Starcrossed so impactful. This three-parter embodies everything great about the show. The action varies between superpowered battles to tense thrills as the fugitive Justice League navigate their way through the Thanagarian police state. This facilitates strong character beats, such as the League revealing their secret identities.
I mean, I trust you guys, but I'm not sure I'm ready to...
Wally West, Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne.
Show off.
As well as Bruce and Diana sharing a kiss to evade capture.
Sorry.
Don't be.
Another highlight is the return of Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.'s Alfred Pennyworth in his final performance. The character has lost nothing of his animated series sassiness, and it's brilliant.
Hey, that's a giant dinosaur.
And I thought Batman was the detective. I've asked Master Bruce to refrain from leaving trash in the yard.
The final set piece reaches operatic heights as the Justice League stages a multi-pronged counter-attack to save the Earth. Superman and Wonder Woman engage in the skies, Batman makes a suicide run by dropping the Watchtower onto the Thanagarian base, all the while Jon Stewart, Shayera and Talek have it out in an emotionally charged melee battle. Every aspect of production is at its peak here. The score is sweeping and dramatic, the action is spectacular and hard-hitting, the voice actors all give bravura performances, and the writing is simply stellar, pitting the characters against each other fighting for duty, honor, and love. Maximalist entertainment at its finest. By the time it's all over, it makes you want to jump up and punch the air.
Always have to be the hero, don't you?
Right back at you.
Though the League are victorious, it comes at great personal cost, with Hawkgirl resigning from the team. In the beautiful final scene, the two heroes share a tearful goodbye. The moving score, painterly sunset, and gentle wind bring this epic melodrama to a heartbreaking end.
I love you too.
Despite its early stumbles, Justice League succeeded in becoming the dream show DC fans always wanted. This lineup and these incarnations of the characters feel truly definitive. A stream of great stories offered each one complex challenges and rich emotional arcs. The creative team learned all the right lessons from previous shows to bring Justice League to life through strong writing, beautiful animation, and stellar music. It's right up there with the lavish big-screen superhero blockbusters. With such a high bar set, What's even more remarkable is that the sequel series somehow surpassed it. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel to stay up to date on future uploads. You can see videos early, uncut and ad-free by joining me on Patreon. I'd like to thank all of my current patrons and members, with an ultra thanks to Evan, Eamon Kelly, Michael Hardy, County Ark, Mike Halsey, Olivia Computer, Bano, Tom, Director Kate, Patrick Fleming, Matthew Camille, Lilac Yene, Ed Mark Starr, Extreme Streamers, Howard Craig Kervik, and AS Caging 101. Thank you once again for watching. Have a good one.